What is up guys, Andy Forrester, Dean Runner here. Welcome back to another video, and these are the super shoes that I've tested in 2023. So I've been fortunate enough to test 4 running super shoes this year from 4 different brands. And what I want to do today is sit down and compare all of these 4 and share with you my thoughts and feelings, the pros and cons, and share with you some stats on these shoes as well. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into this. We're going to dive straight in. If you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. Let's start with the Puma and the On. And actually, just before we compare those two, I want to throw an infographic on screen for you about the 4 shoes. Just talking about stack heights, drops and weight. So you can see that the Nike and the Saucony shoe are very, very similar in weight and exactly the same stack height. We're talking 40mm in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, 8mm drop, and there's a couple of grams in it with the weight. So they're both what I would class as some of my favorite racing shoes, and that formula there, that 8mm drop, maxing out on the stack height, that works really well for me. I've always got on with the Nike racing shoes, and it's great to see the Saucony one, the Endorphin Elite, doing the same. When it comes to the On racing shoe, we've got a 10mm heel to toe drop, 37 in the heel, 27 in the forefoot, and that's the heaviest one of the lot. And then with the Puma shoe, we've got 36 to 28, and that does make a difference, and we're going to talk about that shortly, but that is the 3rd heaviest shoe. So again, the On and the Puma are very similar in terms of weights, and neither of those two get as close to maxing out as the other two, which are right on the line. And with that, we'll get into the comparison of these 2 shoes, not directly head to head, but in general. We'll start with the Puma shoe. This is the one shoe in this lineup here that I'm going to say straight off the bat is probably the one shoe that I wouldn't choose to race in out of these 4 shoes. All of the other shoes I'd want to race in. I feel like I could get the most out of the shoes, and I really enjoy the racing sensation I get from them. Although this is a 36 to 28 stack, so there's a good chunk of foam still in the forefoot, I do feel like this shoe has more of a racing flat vibe to it. Now, I know in years gone by, racing flats are nowhere near this, but I think as we graduate up in terms of stack heights and things, and we get used to these super soft, super squishy foams, we kind of get drawn back to these type of shoes that kind of bring back memories of what racing flats used to be like. I kind of feel like I get a bit more ground contact feel with this shoe. It could be the plate, but I feel like I compress the foam nicely in the forefoot, and I'm getting a lot more of that sensation when I'm hitting the ground. There's a lot more feel there as opposed to the foam absorbing everything else. And what I've actually done with this shoe is I've used this shoe more than the On shoe. I got them in and around a similar time, but I've used this probably double the amount of times, because what I've decided to do is use this as a really useful training shoe. This is one of my favorite shoes of the year, believe it or not. This is absolutely incredible. I love everything about this shoe, and it is a shame that I feel like I can't race in it. It's not that I can't, but I would rather choose the other shoes to race in, but I feel this offers so much to me in training. Yep, it's got a carbon plate, and I do prefer to avoid using carbon plates too much in training, but when the time's right, I do seem to be gravitating towards this when it gets to a decent session length or some kind of long run workout. This is the shoe that I tend to be going towards. So as much as it's not a shoe that I'd love to race in, I have been using it a lot, and I really, really do enjoy it. And we'll move on to the On running shoe now. This is a shoe that I really do rate. I took it out for a session last week, I believe. It's only the 2nd or 3rd time I've used the shoe, and I am gonna just basically back off from using it until I get a chance to race in it. I have definitely gravitated towards the Saucony Endorphin Elite as my goal racing shoe, but I feel like if I can get a few sort of tune-up races in from now on into sort of December and January, that this one's going to get a good run out. What I love about this shoe is I love the cushioning and the plate combination. I do notice the 10mm drop. I do feel like my foot slants down more. I know it's 2mm, but I was just very aware of that 10mm drop. I do feel the comfort in this shoe is brilliant. The lockdown, the fit, everything's really good. The only thing I do notice in this shoe, the longer I run in it, is I do feel like I lose a little bit of bounce in the forefoot. I feel like I'm slapping the road a little bit more rather than getting that bounce and responsiveness off. Whether that's because the plate is quite low to the ground, I don't know. There is obviously more foam between my foot and the plate as opposed to the plate being higher up in the shoe, so I don't necessarily feel the plate. But I do feel as I go on in the shoe towards my workout last week, where I think I covered sort of like 7.5 to 8.5 miles, I did feel in the last sort of mile or two that I was slapping a lot more, whereas in the other shoes, I guess I either sort of sink and bounce, or I kind of roll through really, really nicely. But other than that, I was extremely efficient in that workout. It felt amazing. I moved really fast, and it was a really, really good shoe. This is a really top-notch shoe from On. It is a bit pricey as per the Endorphin Elite, but I have to say, if you're a fan of On shoes, then this one would be really, really worth taking a look at. Then we move on to the two shoes that tick all of the boxes, the Nike Vaporfly 3, the Saucony Endorphin Elite. We'll start with the Elite first. If you've been seeing any of the recent videos, you'll know that this is now my favorite racing shoe. I did Albury 10 miler in this shoe, and it was absolutely incredible. And I've done enough testing in it now that I'm just not going to train in it anymore. I'm just going to save it for racing. What Saucony have done here is produce an absolute stunner of a shoe. And I do feel a lot of it comes down to that sort of 40-32 drop, 8mm drop, I should say. Stack height's perfect, and I do feel like this foam, the HG foam, the Power Run HG foam, is just incredible. Talked about it in previous videos. A sensation you get in this shoe is not just the kind of like the sink and the bounce that you get with the Vaporfly, but you kind of sink and roll through and push off rather than the bounce. With this aggressive toe off as well, you really do roll through. The only negative kind of I found with this after Albury 10 miler was my calves were a little bit shredded. I put 14 miles in that day, 10 of which were a really decent effort. I couldn't work out if it was the shoe or not, because I'd obviously already done a long run in the shoe of 90 minutes, and I'd already done some other testing and I didn't have any issues. So whether it was the fact that I was in the shoe and put a really good intensity in it that made the calves a bit sore, I don't know. But overall, I'm not reading too much into it. I will continue to use it, and it is absolutely incredible. Fit, comfort, feel, you name it. Despite it looking a little bit quirky, the padding at the back, the way it locks your foot down, it's just incredible. And it is the lightest one in this list, which is a bonus for me. And then we talk about the Vaporfly 3, my other favorite shoe out of all of these four. This is fantastic, such a good update from Nike. And I was really happy that when I did buy this, that it felt the way it did when I was running, because I loved version 1, absolutely incredible shoe. Version 2, I just kind of felt like they tinkered with the foam, and the lockdown in the upper didn't quite do it the same for me as the Vapor Weave. So when I got this one, although the lockdown isn't quite good, and I would love to see the Vapor Weave back, but probably an unpopular opinion, but I would. The foam is much more like it was in version 1. Main difference to this one, the forefoot area is a little bit wider, I feel, so you've got a bigger landing platform, meaning that if you are sort of tending to land that midfoot, forefoot, you do get the full benefit of that kind of sink and bounce carbon plate action working there with the foam. It is just such an incredible shoe. It's a little bit more stable, same width. You can see we've got a little bit jutting out at the back here, a little bit of extra foam. I'd love to kind of take a knife to this shoe and cut off all the extras that you don't need, especially around the back here. I reckon you could shave a good 10-12 grams off in my size and really slim this shoe down. But overall, in all honesty, and jokes aside, I think this is a really good shoe. I did do a test recently with the Endorphin Elite. I did find the Elite came out on top for efficiency. Just marginal gains, but overall I feel like the update to this shoe, I feel like Nike went back in the right direction. I feel like, I'd love to see what they're going to plan with version 4, but yeah, I feel like we're on the right track, and this is definitely out of the 4 shoes in the top 2 there that I would highly recommend if you're looking for a racing shoe. Now, I think something that should be taken into account when you're watching sort of this review is that I am 6'6" and I am around 86 to 88 kilos, somewhere around there. So my force that I'm going to be putting into each foot strike is probably going to be greater than a lot of you runners out there that are a lot shorter than me, a lot lighter. So I'm probably going to feel the foam slightly different to you. I'm going to get maybe more benefit from some shoes and probably less benefit from others. But out of the 4 that I've talked about, these are definitely the 3 that make the list in terms of racing shoes. The Puma, yes, it is incredible. I'm loving it, but it isn't one that I would look to race in. And as for orders, if you want to sort of pick favourites down to least favourite, it would be the Endorphin Elite, the Vaporfly, a very, very close one to the On Cloud Boom Echo 3, and then the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 2. And yeah, these are the 3 that I would definitely consider looking at if you are looking at a super shoe. This one and this one are definitely more on the expensive side. You're going to be able to find this one on discount probably near around Christmas time. I should think. So if you want to sit tight for that one, you'll probably be able to get that at a very good price. And I am hoping that the Endorphin Elite goes on discount, because I do know this is priced very high, but I do know they have had a discount on it before, and I would love some of you guys to be able to try this one out. It is absolutely spectacular. And as for the On shoe, yeah, it is what it is. It is just a really good shoe, but it is slightly on the pricey side. So those are my thoughts on those 4 running shoes. Obviously, there are some notable absentees, no ASICS shoes. I talk about this a lot, but if you're new to the channel, there's a lot of running shoe companies that don't do my UK size 13 in their super shoes. They stop at a 12. Everyone always says to me, Andy, you need to test the Super Blast from ASICS. Would love to. They don't do my size. And any of the ASICS racing shoes, they don't do as well. I haven't had much success with Brooks racing shoes either. Adidas have finally upped into our size range. They've now produced the Adios Pro 3, which I have, but I got that last year, hence why it's not in this video. But I am hoping that they'll continue that trend, and I'm hoping other manufacturers will take note and also do the same as well. Again, what I would love to test, the Rocket X2, that didn't come out in a size 13, but their second wave it did, so that's great. I'd love to get my hands on that at some point, and of course, no New Balance shoes in the list here as well. So if you guys have any experience with those and can compare it to any of these that I've got here, it'd be really useful to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so that other people that are looking at those shoes can read your thoughts there and how you stack them up against the ones I've talked about today. If you want to know more on any of these shoes, I'll make sure I leave a couple of videos on screen now to some of the workouts, comparison videos and stuff like that. Hopefully you'll find them useful. Go through and have a look at those, check them out and get some more information there. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content. I'll see you in the next one. Until then.